you all to engage, share and amplify the messages beyond this event. And together, our collective efforts can challenge extremist narratives, not solve them, but challenge them, expose organized crime, and strengthen communities across the region. So, let's make today count. Thank you and good luck with all the deliberations. Thank you.
Zovem se Anes i predstavljam klub za podršku integraciju mladih i osoba sa invaliditetom NASA, organizaciju civilnog društva iz Bosne i Hercegovine.
Moje ime je Dijana Mihajlovski i ja se predstavljam Stitrijer, nevladina organizacija su središte u Republika Makedonija Skopje.
Emily Možarkeva, profesor International Problems in organizat Asociației Civile Naștepăria.
Emily Možarkeva Batuša, da profesor organizata Noimija aktive Ezja Fokus, organizata Asociației Civile na Kosovo.
Zovem se Boris i predstavljam udruženje Restart, organizaciju civilnog društva iz Republike Srbije.
Zovem se Teodora Stjepović. Predstavljam mrežu za omladinski aktivizam Crne Gore, organizaciju civilnog društva iz Crne Gore.
Sot, naštem forca, это адресуване чешки луѓето на Балкани пред мор.
А тоа е борбата против насилниот екстремизам.
Екстремизм е дошъл да криви организува и антидалида аниметията в Търсър, докато свидува поштовничо шитона на шумидели.
Socioekonomski problemi, kao što su siromaštvo, nezaposlenost i nedostatak obrazovanja, stvaraju plodno tlo za razvoj ekstremističkih ideologija.
Ključno je riješiti ove uzroke kako bismo stvorili otpornije zajednice.
Токму заеднувањето на граѓанското општество е од витално значење за оваа борба која најмногу ги засега младите.
Jačanjem civilnog društva i zajedničkim radom možemo stvoriti
Sigurnija,
Inkluzivnija,
Да вътрешно дружество на Балкани пред мор.
We have prepared this video message together with beneficiary institutions in each of the 6 Balkan countries, and we have launched the campaign last night, and I would kindly invite you to join the campaign and also spread the message in your social media accounts as well. Now I would like to give the floor to Fatjona Mejdini, the Director of Southeastern Europe Observatory at the GI-TOC.
Good morning, everyone. I really hope that you had a nice evening yesterday and you had the opportunity to enjoy the exhibition that is here still today with you, the food and the music. But most importantly, I hope that you had the chance to enjoy the company of each other. Yesterday, but also today, we have the privilege, in fact, to have over 60 representatives of civil society organizations, activists, journalists, professors on the issues of violent extremism and organized crime from the 6 Western Balkan countries. And I know for sure that there's a lot of expertise and knowledge in this room ready to be shared. So please take it and benefit from it. And I believe that in this kind of activities and in this forum, it's very important to network and to share with each other not only the best practices, but also some of the challenges that you are facing in your daily work. Today we are going to kick off this forum by hearing again the voice of youth, but later on we are also going to hear the voices of our experts in the global initiative, but also other experts from Kosovo and the region that we have invited to share their knowledge with you. Speaking of global initiative, which I represent, and we have the honor, in fact, to host this forum, in your folders you are going to have this flyer, and if you see it closely, mostly, I believe that some of you have already done so, you are going to find a flyer that has the QR codes for some of our reports. you just go there, scan the QR code, and download the report. So we have also tried to be a little bit environmental friendly in this forum and to give some good examples. So you have four interesting reports in here, but one that I want to spotlight is the report that is called Beyond Ideology, Violent Extremism and Organized Crime in the Western Balkans. And as the ambassador also mentioned, this is the report that we have just launched, and it shows and it analyzes the intersection between organized crime and violent extremism in this region. So I believe it's quite interesting, but for more, of course, this is not all of our publications. We have many of that, so please go to our webpage, globalinitiative.net, where you are going to find our work, but also the work of the Global Initiative colleagues from across the world. Today, after the experts, we are also going to have some more compelling visual arts, but this is a surprise that is going to come a little bit later on. I really hope that you will enjoy this forum and give the best and connect to each other. Thank you very much.
In this session, we have Youth Talk, in which we will have two young people from the Western Balkans giving their voices and powerful personal insights on the impact of violent extremism and organized crime. I kindly invite Anes Music, who is from Mostar, Bosnia and Herzegovina, who was also one of the beneficiaries of this project supported by the Dutch government. So Anes, I kindly invite you to take the floor and deliver your speech.
Right. Hello everyone. My name is Anes Music, and I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's a small country with a complex history, but also a country where young people are on a crossroad. Young people are on a crossroad between the hope for the better future, but on the other hand, they are being pushed by the radicalism and violence into the wrong direction. I'm going to start with one short personal story. A few years back, I met one man. Back then, he was 18-year-old person, and for the sake of the story, we will call him Dino. And Dino was full of potential, but also full of anger. He was a person who dropped out of the school, a person who later on struggled when it comes to finding a proper job. And that is also a person who thought that his voice didn't matter. Later on, one group approached to him and offered him a sense of identity, a sense of belongingness. Unfortunately, that group actually was feeding him with frustration. That group also was promoting the idea of violence, and violence was used by that group in order to fight against what they saw as a system which was rigged against them. Later on, Dino was in a position to make irreversible decisions, but luckily for him, one mentor intervened. That mentor actually tried to change his life path. Later on, instead of life path which will be full of violence, he actually embraced activism. Later on, he became a very, let's say, locally famous person and very popular activist. And I want to share this story as one positive example. On the other hand, there are many young people which did not have a mentor, which weren't so lucky. And those people, in case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, are mostly influenced by the high unemployment, political instability, which was also present in the country, also social division and corruption. I would like also to mention and to focus on main factors which we define through our research as the ones which are making young people to become members of those radical groups, extremist groups. First, I would like to focus on lack of economic opportunities. Unfortunately, Bosnia and Herzegovina is one of the countries where high unemployment rate is very high. It's one of the highest ones in Europe. On the other hand, we are also faced with weak education. The education, actually the schools are teaching historical narratives depending on the ethical lines, which is also reinforcing the already inherited biases, and which is also working only in the interests of those political elites which are focused on keeping the status quo and maintaining the division among young people as well. Also, I would like to mention political aspect. Actually, the fact that young people are being used as a chess pawns in their political games, and in most cases, that young people are just being used by those political elites without any concrete good results from it. And there's also social alienation, which we define as the fourth factor, which is bringing people closer, young people especially, closer to radicalism. Social alienation actually is the state where young people feel disconnected from the mainstream society, and in those situations actually most young people are feeling that no one understands them, and that's also a fertile ground for many groups which are trying to offer them some sort of belongingness, even though their policy is very radical, and the ones who are leading those groups are people who have very extremist views on the world. Now, I would also like to mention what would be the solutions for these issues. We need, first of all, to invest in our education. We need to provide young people with more opportunities. We need to focus more on critical thinking, so young people can make decisions on their own. So we need to provide them with the skills which will be useful for them in their future life. I would also like to mention that these challenges are the ones which cannot be settled fully on individual scale. We need a joint effort. We need that everybody is included. That's why I would like to say that the change is up to us. It's up to us to make a change, and the change can start at the events like this one. It can start with us. It can start with the young people, and also it can start with you all, as people who care about young people as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anes. Club Masa, but also you in particular, are doing an amazing work, not only in Mostar, but also throughout the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we thank you for that, and we encourage you also to be even more active and do more work. Now the second speaker comes from Albania, Vlora. Vlora Youth Center is one of the most active organizations, not only in the region of Vlora, but also in Albania. They work with young people, but not only, and they are very active in building youth resilience against organized crime, but also violent extremism. So I kindly invite Ilaria Sheila from Vlora, Albania, to deliver a short speech.
Hello everyone, I'm Ilaria Sheila from Vlora Youth Center, and I am very, very happy to be here among you. Now, when I first started thinking about what mind was actually a song. That's right. A song by Michael Jackson called Man in the Mirror. So, the line that you just heard is a line that really stands out. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. Now, you might be wondering, what does this song have to do with organized crime and violent extremism? Well, honestly, not much. But it has everything to do with us, the youth, the future of our countries, because if we truly want to change things, we have to start by changing ourselves. How? Well, for starters, we could choose the right role models, because we should look up to people who have genuinely made a difference, who have improved society, and have changed the world for the better. Not people who promote crimes or drugs or any other kind of illegal activity. We should also be very mindful of the content that we consume every day on social media, on TV, on the news, or anywhere else. Why? Because we need to understand that every piece of content is created with a purpose. So we should be aware of what that purpose is. Instead of just absorbing everything mindlessly, we should think critically. Does this content add value to my life? If yes, that's great. But if not, then just keep on scrolling. Data from the project that we implemented in Albania showed that young people spend up to 8 hours a day on social media. 8 hours. That is 1/3 of an entire day. Imagine all the things that we could do with that time. Engaging in cultural activities, sports, arts, theater, or even something as simple as a football match. Because these activities not only keep us productive, but they also help us come together in a positive way. Slowly we are missing out on social interactions, and instead we are immersed in an unrealistic, alienating virtual world behind the screens. When we think about why young people fall into organized crime and violent extremism, we often mention things like lack of trust in institutions, poverty, unemployment, poor education, and while all of these are definitely But let's be honest, social media is here to stay. And young generations are growing up hand in hand with it.
the nexus between violent extremism and organized crime, which is basically a baseline report. As said, it's basically the result of a first assessment. We really wanted to understand how these two phenomena interact, using some specific examples that you can see, of course, in the report. Then we have other two specific thematic focuses, one on the financial aspect, which is led by my colleague Sasha, and then another one on the threats posed by foreign fighters and returnees, which is also, which is instead led by our colleague Fabian Gil. And then we have, of course, the resilient component. For this specific session, I would like actually now to also invite Adelina, if you wanna come to the stage. She's gonna help us in this, in facilitating this conversation. Adelina Mejdini, if you wanna introduce yourself.
Përshëndetje për gjithë. Po flas në gjuhën shqipe, më qenë se ka më të lehtë edhe me u shpreh në lidhje me këtë temë. Unë jam Adelina Mejdini, jam gazetare hulumtuese në rrjetin ballkanik të gazetarisë hulumtuese në Kosovë. Tash e disa vite bashkë me disa prej juve që jeni këtu në sallë, kemi ndjek, kemi përcjell, po kemi qenë ko pas kohë edhe pjesë e hulumtimeve, raporteve të ndryshme të cilat I kemi trajtu në lidhje me qoftë ekstremizmin e donjshëm, po qoftë edhe krimin e organizuar. Faleminderit shumë për mundësinë me qenë pjesë e këtij diskutimi bashkë me ju. Gjithë e dim në çdo vend, sidomos në Ballkan, mënyra se çysh bëhet rekrutimi I personave qoftë në grupe ekstreme, po qoftë edhe në grupe të krimit të organizuar, ndonse të dyja përmend edhe nga parafolësit janë të ndërlidhura shumë mes vete, por është e ndryshme dhe gjejnë motive të ndryshme. Kosova ka pas lehtë fatkeqësisht me pas rekrutues të fshehur. Këto e tregon edhe fakti që sa I përket ekstremizmit të ndonjshëm në aspektin religjioz fetar, ne kemi diku më shumë se 400 persona të cilët kanë marrë rrugë për me shku në zonat e konfliktit në Siri dhe Irak. Shumica nga ata janë kthy fatmirësisht pas një pune të gjatë të cilën e kanë bërë edhe institucionet në Kosovë. Ata janë ballafaqur me sistemin e drejtësisë, andaj edhe pra për shkak të ligjeve të cilat janë në Kosovë, disa prej tyre janë dënuar me borgë të tjerë ka të cilët janë dënuar me kusht, por kanë qenë vazhdimisht të monitoruar nga institucionet e Kosovës në lidhje me atë se çfarë kanë patja, se ku kanë marrë pjesë, edhe se çka presin tash prej anës së tyre. Kemi raste të ndryshme në Kosovë, lidhemi në aspektin kufitar edhe me vendet e tjera, në Serbinë, Albania, Macedoni, edhe e vrejnë që ka pas vazhdimisht edhe prej këtyre vendeve të cilat kanë ndikuar jashtëzakonisht shumë në rekrutimin e trembëve, qoftë në aspektin e ekstremizmit të dhënshëm religjioz, po qoftë edhe në aspektin e krimit të organizuar. E çka I dallon këto dyja mes vete nuk dallon shumë në krejt në të gjitha vendet, pra në gjitha vendet është njësoj, tek grupet kriminale karakteristikat ma shumë janë motivime, ata kanë ma shumë pare, kanë ma shumë fuqi, kanë ma shumë status, ndërsa tek grupet ekstreme, varësisht prej aspektit që është religjioz fetar, apo edhe ato të krahë të djathtë, kryesisht ndërlidhur me ideologjinë, me fenë, me atë se çfarë, me padrejtësi sociale kryesisht. Në Kosovë, po flas për Kosovë sepse më ka rama shumë e përcjell këto aspektin se çysh është bo, edhe reintegrimi, çysh është bo dhe puna institucionale në lidhje me trajtimin e këtyre rasteve. Duhet me pas parasysh që ndonse rekrutimi I trembëve në grupe ekstreme, po edhe në grupe të krimit të organizuar, është proces kogja I avancuar, është proces kogja I shumë fishum, përfshihen individ, përfshihen rrjete të ndryshme, edhe ka shumë aktorë të cilët luajnë rol në këtë rekrutim, themi ose në këtë proces. Gjithmonë tu I pas parasysh faktet që në rekrutimin e njerëzve në për grupe të krimit organizuar, po edhe grupeve ekstreme luajnë rol jashtëzakonisht të madh njerëzit të cilët kanë influencë. Gjithë këtu në sallë ne mundemi me pas idol dikon. edhe varësisht çka ai thot, ne mundemi me marrë si të mirë qenë një situatë apo një fjali apo një kërkesë të atij personi cilin ne e idolizojmë. Pra, kryesisht në rekrutimin e këtyre njerëzve, këta persona luajnë një rol shumë të rëndësishëm. Një tjetër aspekt cilin shfrytëzohet për me i rekrutu trend kryesisht, sepse trend janë pika, janë targeti i grupeve të ndryshme, jo vetëm grupet e krimit organizuar ose grupet e ekstremeve të dhënshme që janë, po të gjitha grupeve. Trend janë pika kyçe të cilët ata zgjedhin, i targetojnë e më pas i rekrutojnë për më bërë pjesë të grupeve të tyre për me kry krime apo për me çu përpara një ideologji të caktuar. E zakonisht kur i përmendim tri gjithmonë na bjen mend aspekti social-ekonomik të cilët këta të rinj e kanë. Mu më ka ra me i taku shumicën e grave të cilat janë rikthyer prej zonave të konfliktit nga Siria dhe Iraku, në Kosovë, edhe e kom pa dhe kom dëgju prej tyre rrëfime të ndryshme. Rrëfime të cilat e kam prek aspektin social-ekonomik. Rrëfime të cilat kur i dëgjon pse e kanë marrë një rrugë të tillë, ndonë se disa prej tyre nuk e kanë ditë se ku po shkojnë, kanë tregu që janë josh prej kërkesave ose janë josh prej ofertave të cilët i kanë marrë qoftë prej partnerëve të tyre, sepse ata kanë qenë një shtys që grahet me udhëtu për me shku në zonat e konfliktit, po qoftë edhe prej ofertave që kanë marrë gjatë kohës, gjatë rrugës cilën ata kanë përshku prej Kosovës, përmes rrugëve ilegale për me shku në Siri dhe Irak. Edhe kjo tregon që ky aspekt social ka ndiku dhe është njëna prej masave kyçe të cilat mundën me i votë të rinjt, po edhe personat të tjerë që janë lehtë manipulueshëm për shkak të situatave të cilat ata i kanë pas gjatë jetës së tyre. Dhe kjo mundet me ndiku jashtëzakonisht shumë që ata me marrë këtë rrugë edhe me çu përpara një çështje të caktuar. Organizatat në Kosovë dihet pas luftës vitin 99, e din që në atë kohë kemi pas lulat e para. Unë atë kohë kam qenë e vogël me mosh, po nga raportet cilat i kam lexuar, nga ulëmtimet cilat i kam bërë gjatë viteve të fundit, që nga viti 2016 bashkë me kolegët e mi në Bern, po edhe në organizata të tjera kemi pasur që pas luftës ka pasur ndikim të madh organizatave jo qeveritare që kanë luajtur rol në Kosovë, jashtëzakonisht dhe kryesisht organizata jo qeveritare janë shembi petkun e organizatave humanitare. Edhe kryesisht i kam prek të rinjt me çështjen e edukimit më shumë. Edhe kjo më pas ka ndikuar që grupet e caktuara, njerëz të caktuar me marrë rrugë dhe me vazhdu, sepse rekrutimi nuk është një çështje të cilën ti sot e nis edhe mundesh me marrë si të mirëqen faktin që mas një muaji dikënd kime pas mbrapa atje. Jo, gjatë me vite, edhe kjo shihet edhe me anë të asaj se çka ka ndodhur, qoftë në Kosovë apo edhe në vende të tjera të botës, sa i përket rasteve ku grupet organizuara kanë funksionuar së bashku. Një tjetër çështje, nëse atë vazhdoj apo do me bëj një farë lloj interaktiviteti mes njëri tjetrit.
Thank you very much. Yes, so no worries. So as I said before, there is usually an understanding of the two phenomena as separate, and they are treated differently. And this, of course, has an impact also on the way we understand the way people, and in general, of course, youngsters get drawn into and recruited into crime and violent extremism as basically separate processes. So the first session, the first 15 minutes, let's say, discussion that I would like to have all together as a group is what happens then if the two things overlap? And in general, in many cases, for example, it's always, I mean, in literature, in academic literature, in policy formulation, there's always based on the assumption that they are all based on the assumptions that recruitment offers, so the recruiters offer power, easy money, and this word, which has already actually been also mentioned already by our previous speakers, which is the sense of belonging. Although here I want to go actually beyond this assumption. I want to test these assumptions. So the main question here, is it really about that? Meaning, what are we missing? And if we go to the next slide, actually I have a few questions that I would like to ask, and we'll actually start our discussion. So first, is it always the same narrative that we are here to sort of like reiterate? Is it always about marginalized groups? Is it always about marginalized neighborhood? What about instead actually the many examples of youngsters that are actually coming from pretty stable family with no particular hardship in whatever their upbringing, that they are, until the moment that they join a specific either violent extremist group or even an organized crime group, a mafia style, for example, crime group. So what about them? This is the first question. So the first assumption that I would like to discuss with you and how to actually questioning it, what are we missing here? If it's just about specific people or if it's something that basically affects the society as a whole. Then second, where recruitment happens. You know, in such a digitalized world, it's probably sometimes also very easy to blame, in a way, social media. Ilaria was talking about the fact that, you know, there's so much content out there that we could actually benefit from. But, you know, sometimes some content is just more attractive than the rest. But then the question is it just happening on social media? And vis-a-vis, of course, the typical, you know, marginalized community, the typical community leader that does the work on the ground and recruits youngsters, and then the rest just happen on social media, or is something which is probably just happening, you know, in front of us, and we probably really here missing something. Then the third question that I would also to discuss is, how often do civil servants, and by civil servants, of course, I mean people working in institutions, so people that have to deal with these issues on a daily basis from within the institutions, from the ministries and from the schools or whatever. So do they really have a space to think about solutions beyond their own institutions? So is there anything that they can do? And do you believe that also when you approach them, when you work with them, do you feel and do you perceive also any frustration in the way they work? Is there anything that they wish they could do together, of course, with civil society, but that because of the mandate of their institution, their office, they're not either allowed to, or there is no possibility to engage just because, for example, the political will of the specific government, the specific municipality doesn't allow them to do? So these are the questions that I would like to discuss with you. I mean, I could have here prepared a very boring presentation of the study, but I don't really think that this is, first of all, the place nor the time to bore you with a very conference-style presentation. So, and also for me, in a very selfish way, we are here to exchange ideas, and I'm here actually to learn from you, because you are the ones which have the experience on the ground, and I'm just one of the many researchers that probably have come across already in many conferences here organized by the West. And yeah, so if anybody wants to start, or maybe I can pick and choose, there was actually yesterday a very interesting conversation that I had, and I saw that you are looking down. Do you want to come and share your experience about, especially your work that you've been doing when it comes to recruitment? As you wish. And please also, if you can also focus and mention, as you mentioned actually yesterday to me, that, you know, sometimes you feel the frustration when it comes to working with youth, but then the youngsters, they come back to their family have a very different opinion from you, and then basically every day you have to restart the same work because you have to struggle with the society that we live in.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
So, As I mentioned yesterday,
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Darren Nagotse. I'm from Skopje, North Macedonia, representing Center for Common Ground. We usually work for preventing counter-violent extremism, and we're working with youth. So what we usually do is working prevention through sports, and we're working, as I mentioned, with youth. So, taking emotions. I never done a speech before people, that's why. Yeah, I will say it will be much more informal. And yes, and what we do is working with primary schools. We are engaging, as you know, Skopje is Macedonia, it's multi-ethnic country, and we collaborate with primary schools where we have our community outreach events, where we are gathering youth from multi-ethnic society, and what we usually do is gathering them together through building their life skills through sports, and also preventing them from violent extremism. And what we are trying to do is breaking their barriers that they get from home. But also, when we talk about the donors, we also mentioned that we have to start working with their parents, because it's not enough that we are doing with the youth, because every time we break those barriers, when they get back home, they will still have those barriers back again. So also we have been thinking about to add the presence of their parents during our activities, such instead of us buying from some foods from the restaurants where we give them as a refreshment, it's like engaging the parents to cook for the children and to have some society together, so we can build some resilience and inclusive communities together. Also, yeah, that's all.
So absolutely, you have mentioned probably one of the most important actors, which are often in a way, I don't want to say overlooked, but definitely a little bit underestimated, which is the role of parents. Many times we sort of work under the assumption that whenever there is some sort of interventions, either by government or by civil society, we always believe that, or at least we assume that the families, the parents, are in a way or another sort of aligned with the intervention, with the kind of work that we are implementing. And I believe this is probably the first thing that should be questioned. Sometimes, and actually pretty often, this is actually not the case, because you have not only to struggle with the society, beliefs in general, so the specific context in which you are intervening, but also with the context which is hidden, because behind the doors, of course, of family homes, you don't know what kind of conversation is going on, and you don't know what impact a specific conversation that a parent might have with the kid that you are working with, for example, for a couple of months. And this, of course, can affect negatively not only the impact of your work in terms of implementations, but also the ultimate goal of changing a specific belief, a system of belief. So here, I thank you very much, first of all, and sorry for putting you on the spot like this. I knew that you wouldn't like it, but it is what it is.
You're welcome.
You're smiling, Milos. Do you wanna add anything to the discussion? Yes, Dimitar, please.
Hi, I'm Dimitar Nikolovsky. I come from Eurothink Center for European Strategies from Skopje. I can add just a few points from my own research, so not practice, but research, to all of the questions that you've posed here. Well, the first one about economic hardship, I would say that not necessarily. We did 4 years ago a large-scale study in North Macedonia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we had the main assumption that corruption and state capture are the main systemic drivers of extremism. And when we go down into the field, what I remember from conversations that I have with two founders of two different extremist organizations was exactly that they had a very big sense of injustice that was coming from the state, that they had been victims of corrupt system, of corrupt judicial system. But then again, where they pointed their anger, that is what matters. And of course, they pointed their anger at another ethnic group. And hence, they felt that they need to protect themselves from the corruption of the other ethnic group and the state that works in favor of the corruption of the other ethnic group in order to protect themselves. And then they formed this extremist organization. So I think we need to take that into account, that reaction to corruption as a driver of extremism. The second one about the social media platforms, again, I would say not necessarily. In research that I conducted throughout the whole region, we saw that extremist groups, I'm not talking about organized crime per se here, but then it evolves into it afterwards, that extremist groups were using a lot of cultural events and production of culture, either through music, through sports. Then here, these boxing clubs and MMA clubs are very important grounds of recruitment of new people. And also, as Adelina had mentioned, the humanitarian actions. And we see this a lot in Serbia, and I've seen it in Montenegro, that these kind of far-right groups are using humanitarian actions to help, to then draw people into them. And about the final question about the civil servants, I would say that in our countries here in the region, civil servants cannot do their job in their own institutions, let alone have space to look for solutions outside of their own institutions. In research that I conducted in prisons in North Macedonia about the whole process of de-radicalization and rehabilitation, we have social workers in prisons who have, one social worker needs to serve up to 50 prisoners. How are they going to commit to working specifically with people who are either under threat of radicalization or who are returnees from Syria and Iraq, if they have so many people that they need to work with? It's simply impossible. So we have this systemic shortcoming within the institutions themselves. Thanks.
Thank you very much. A few things, if I may, before, of course. If there is another point, absolutely, please, go ahead. Okay. Yes, thank you. And then Miloša.
I have one, Dušica from Macedonia, Macedonian Young Lawyers Association. I have one interesting example when I saw the first question. It's always really about the economic hardship. I have an example, and I think it's not always about that economic vulnerability or social risk. Sometimes the reasons are other vulnerabilities that lead towards the radicalization and then violent extremism. I have an example of a man that was from a very good economic standing family, that educated family, and he himself was a good student, medical studies, but for him, in his case, he was, I think, feeling lonely. He felt loneliness, maybe some felt neglected from his parents. He was looking for some kind of belonging, someone who will understand him, appreciate him. He wanted to feel valued, and that's how, in his case, he found some friend from. The friend was Muslim, and after some time, he converted from Christianity to Muslim, and afterwards he got, how to say, targeted from some people in the community of in Skopje, in different mosques. So he was first radicalized, and then he was targeted and extremely radicalized, and he went to Syria, to the battlefield in Syria. Now he's returned here. He continued to work as a medical doctor, but he has a really hard way and hardship during his journey. So sometimes there are other circumstances and reasons to be radicalized and to go towards the violent extremism.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Milos, you wanted the floor?
Thanks, Roger. Milos Katic from Radio Free Europe. Your first question, maybe just to add, because you mentioned what we are missing, maybe it's part of emotion. Dušica already a little bit tackled that side, and I had the opportunity to talk with some foreign fighters which are present in this Russian-Ukrainian war. So their motivation is not just economic part, but also that feeling which they have when they are talking about Russian and those Serbian-Russian brothers. Your second question, which is related to social media networks, it depends which social networks you follow. So you can notice that different narratives are present on Telegram, Instagram, and TikTok. So on Telegram they maybe have more, how to say, specific group related to those who are not on that level, youth more main target when they use mainly Instagram and TikTok when they are trying to target youth. It's interesting when you try to follow those kind of narratives on TikTok and Instagram, and when you catch that algorithm of those social networks, you can find a lot of content related to different how to say, groups for belonging with really strong messages. And for me it's very interesting what type of music they are using in background. So it's really catchy for also for me when follow that kind, and it's really did on a really modern way and creative. And that's third question. I think that the main point is on which way you are really creative. So in this period, with different digital platforms, you must find a way how to approach those youth and to be creative in that way.
Thank you very much. Of course.
Ponderlidam, me faktin sepse I dëgjova disa prej juve, fillimisht po du me kolegun nga Macedonia, kur u përmend fakti I prindërimit ose lidhjes mes prindërve dhe fëmijëve në aspektin se qysh me I identifiku fëmijët nëse po hyjnë në për dukuri negative. Ne kemi pas para disa vitesh e kemi pas një rast, një prindë kemi intervistu, djali I tij shkon në Siri për të bërë pjesë e grupeve ose pjesë e konfliktit atje. Dhe rrëfimi babait të tij tregon qysh ai thot, kam tentu me kanë bab I mirë për ta, nuk I ka mungu asgjë, kam shkollu gjitha, por duket se dikush ka punu ma shumë me të se sa unë. Ndonë se, sepse përdu me lidhme edhe me pyetjen e parë, nëse gjithmonë janë çështjet ekonomike që Ndonjëherë është edhe ideologjia, sepse kur lidhesh, kur e hu besimin në diçka, kur sidomos e kemi pa shumë shpesh njerëzit të cilët përjetojnë, kanë probleme, qoftë personale, qoftë profesionale, ata humbin besimin, qoftë në shoqëri, qoftë në familje, e humbin besimin në institucionet sepse e shohin që nuk po janë, nuk po I trajtojnë ashtu si që meritojnë, atëherë çka bëjnë ata lidhen me ideologji. Dhe ideologjia është shumë e rrezikshme sepse mbaret prej kujt e merr atë ideologji dhe qysh e transmeton ideologjin një person I caktuar tek ti dhe kjo më pas edhe të fut në për rrugë të rrezikshme apo dukuri negative dhe në fund ti e sheh veten që e bë pjesë e grupeve të ndryshme, qoftë edhe ekstremiste, po qoftë edhe pjesë të grupeve të cilat kryejnë krime të rënda në gjitha vendet e tjera. Te pyetja e dytë kemi evolu tash. Nuk është çështja sepse në bazë të mekanizmave institucionet të cilat I kemi në vendet në të cilat jetojmë, kanë kriju mekanizma të cilat I mbikëqyrin pak a shumë edhe rrjetet sociale edhe aspektin online të grupeve të cilat janë të targetume e që potencialisht munden me qenë rekrutues të mundshëm të rinjve kryesisht për të bërë pjesë e grupeve të ndryshme kriminale, po kur nuk duhet me harru faktin që rekrutimi më I mirë bëhet fizikisht. Rekrutuesi zgjedh mënyrën qysh me u lidh me çat person, m'ia përdor ndjenjat emocionale të tij, me përdor aspektin humanitar, fetar, gjithçka, me pas një lidhje private me të. Edhe në fund ai sigurohet se çaj person, çka do që t'i thot rekrutuesi, ai person e merr si të mirëqen faktin që nuk ka, ajo është shumë mirë ajo që po e thua dhe nuk ndron ajo çka ka. Edhe tek e treta, do më ndaj pak tek puna që është bërë në Kosovë në aspektin e shoqërisë civile, lidhje me institucionet. Shumë shpesh, unë jam gazetare, po jam edhe hulumtuese në BIRN, tregova më herët. Shumë shpesh na kemi bërë intervista, kemi trajtu tema të cilat nuk janë pa prej njerëzve të tjerë, nuk janë transmetu. Sepse qëllimi jonë nuk ka qenë veç me marrë problematike edhe me qit në televizion, edhe me tregu që kjo problematika. Kemi zgjedhë çka me bon. Kemi zgjedhë me marrë atë problematik me qit në letra, me këshyrë cilat janë zgjidhjet për çat problematik. Çka mundet me bo shoqëria, çka mundet me bo njerëzit të cilët punojnë për institucione, sepse nuk e kemi vetëm institucionin e sigurisë që ka me kap një person I cili ka kryer një veprimtari të kundërligjshme, varësisht çfarë është ajo, me shtim burg, çka arrim ato. Kemi plot mekanizma të tjerë të cilët janë kriju për me I trajtu këto dukuri negative. Dhe mendoj që roli jonë si shoqëri është shumë I rëndësishëm për me I identifiku, me I çu përpara ose me I çu në vendet ku duhet ato probleme që na I hasim edhe me e tentu së bashku me bëni zgjidhje. Në mënyrë që për gjithë secilën dukuri na me ditë qysh me reagu. Sepse janë institucionet, po jemi ne ata që në terren hasim pikërisht me kategori të ndryshme të njerëzve, qoftë njerëz të cilët kanë qenë më herët apo janë aktualisht pjesë e grupeve kriminale apo grupeve ekstreme, qoftë edhe me familjarët e tyre. Andaj na e krijojmë besimin të parët, sepse na jemi në terren, I shohim, I prekim të tema në baza ditore. Edhe kur ne punojmë së bashku, kur ne punojmë për me gjetë një zgjidhje, para se me punu me bo publike një zgjidhje, një problem të caktuar, atëherë mendoj që na kemi arrit me bo diçka për te asaj për cilën na përfaqësojmë.
Thank you very much. Adelina, before coming to you, you have already the microphone. Please go ahead, sir.
Përshëndetje. Të gjithëve, unë jam Fitim Flugaj, një njohës I thellë I fraksioneve fetare, islamike dhe krishtere të tjera. Përndryshe, po lidhen në radhë parë me pyetjen e parë. Ne në përvojat e Kosovës kemi përvojat cilat na flasin dhe e hudhen poshtë këtë çështjen ekonomike, por ne gjithmonë duhet ta kuptojmë se rinia është ajo e cila ka bërë gjithmonë revolucionet janë arritur nëpërmjet rinisë. Dhe siç thot populli, rinia I riu është si veriu. ka emocionet e larta, ndërsa logjika apo media është në nivelin më të ulët se sa emocionet, dhe kjo është ajo forma që shfryzonte edhe filozofi Sokrati kur bënte shpërlarjen e trurit apo edhe montimin dhe pajisjen me ide të cilat ai i përcjellte në filozofinë e tij, e cila gjatë tash është duke u përdorur faktikisht edhe tek fraksionet të cilat ose tek ata të cilët kanë kaluar në radikalizëm, dhe pikërisht është bërë edhe kjo, do thotë, çështje ekonomike. Ne për shembull kemi rastin në Kosovë kur personi ka qenë shumë, është kthyer nga kriza, nga vendet e krizës, luftës, dhe i cili vetë personalisht ka qenë në mediat tona të Kosovës, ku ai tregon qartë se nuk ishte as pak s'kishte të bëjë me çështjen ekonomike, përkundrazi, do thotë ishte i ri natyrisht, edhe është ende i ri, dhe emocionet kishin arritur deri në atë nivel, saqë kishte parë një padrejtësi sociale, një diçka e cila e kishte brejt dhe kishte mendimi i tij, do thotë nuk ishte rekrutuar nga asnjë individ apo nga askush, po ishte rekrutuar nga gjendja e cila mbretëronte në një vend ku ai e ndinte një lloj obligimi moral. Do thotë janë shumë elemente, janë shumë faktorë që ndikojnë deri te rekrutimi i një personi, saqë shpesh herë ndodh që rekrutimi bëhet nga vetë informimi që vjen ose që përcillet, informacioni që vjen nëpërmjet mediave, duke mos pasur qëllimin rekrutimin e një personi, por ja se ai do thotë ndikohet dhe emocionet e tij kalojnë deri në atë moment saqë ai tani e përcjell veten dhe ik në ato vende të krizës. Por natyrisht të gjithë ata, do thotë, ne gjithmonë duhet ta kuptojmë dhe duhet të jemi gjithmonë përcjellës të gjendjes psiqike dhe sociale të rinisë. Unë në një rast kisha propozuar në gjithë Kosovën që për shembull në Kosovë i mungon secili qytet i mungon një vend rekreacioni, sidomos gjatë verës, nuk ka pishina, nuk ka, po edhe pishinat të cilat edhe gjatë dimrit mund të mbahen mbuluara, të cilat mund ta thithin një pjesë të energjisë rinisë dhe mos mendojnë në rinia matitje ose mos arrijë që dikush t'i rekrutoj ata, por t'i përcjellin, dhe thotë këtu po kyqen edhe institucionet e shtetit, të cilat duhet të jenë shumë. Përveç kësaj, ne si shoqëri civile, në aspektin e mediave sociale, ne duhet krijojmë programe të cilat ballavaçohen me ideologjitë ekstreme, dhe të cilat, sepse ideologjitë ekstreme ne po përqendrohemi më shumë tek ato fetare. Po ne kemi tash edhe në Kosovë, kemi ekstreme fetare, po kemi ekstreme politike të cilat ndoshta në të ardhmen do të jenë shumë të rrezikshme se sa ato fetare, sepse siç e potencoi edhe e nderuara gazetarja, ne në Kosovë kemi arritur të menaxhojmë mjaft mirë dhe të integrojmë një pjesë të madhe të atyre të cilët u kthyen nga vendet e krizës, të cilët faktikisht vetë e deklaruan se kanë qenë në një agoni, të cilën nuk e kanë kuptuar edhe vetë pse kanë shkuar deri në ato vende dhe pse kanë luftuar, kur ne gjithmonë kemi përcjell mesazhet se ato vende kanë rini të mjaftueshme, bile kanë rini më shumë se sa çdo vend në botë dhe nuk kanë nevojë për luftëtar, të kanë nevojë për të ndalë lufta dhe për të krijuar një atmosferë, një jetë stabile, një paqë, një qetësi, një rahati dhe një zhvillim progres edhe shoqëror edhe ekonomik. Pra të gjitha këto tri pyetje që i ka radhit zoti Rogjero, faktikisht të cilat janë, do të thonë, bëjnë pjesë në rekrutim, por rekrutimi faktikisht është ai i cili përcillet nga individ caktuar me qëllime të caktuar dhe të cilët faktikisht nuk kanë të bëjnë me realitetin e qoftë e bindje është fokusi ku fokusohet të gjithë, sidomos larës trurit. Faleminderit shumë që më dëgjuat. Ndoshta unë mundova që të përfshi të gjitha, por nuk nuk faktori shumë i rëndësishëm, sa janë faktorë tjerë. Faktori kryesor unë mendoj është niveli i lartë, shumë i lartë, i emocioneve të rinisë, e cila shfrytëzohet në mënyrën më të ulët, në mënyrën më idiote ta quaj, është, më falni për shprehjen, por unë që në mënyrë idiote kur shfryzohet i riu dhe rinia në çështje të arritjes të një interesi që është shumë negativ ndoshta për shoqërinë dhe shumë i dëmshëm, ne në fund themi Zoti na ruaj nga të gjitha ata. Faleminderit shumë.
Thank you very much, Professor Adelina, as a last on this, and then we move a little bit to the next topic for the second and last part.
Po vazhdojmë në shqip, Adelina Asone nga Qendra Kosovare për Studimin e Sigurisë. Vetëm një ndërhyrje të shkurt sidomos për pjesën e të rinjeve, për rekrutimin e të rinjeve, jashtë agjendjes ekonomike dhe sociale, mendoj që sidomos të rinjet ka ndikim të lartë edhe kjo identiteti ose krijimi i identitetit. Me ato sa na ka ro me bërë disa hulumtus, disa intervista me psikolog, me mësimdhënës, ka qenë kjo pjesa e ndërtimit të identitetit që luan një rol të rëndësishëm. Dhe këtu pastaj ka rëndësi disa elemente. E para është gjendja e korrupsionit apo ky perceptimi i korrupsionit edhe besimi i vogël në institucione, të cilët të rinjet e shohin një hapësirë shumë të vogël për mu angazhu qytetar. Dhe kjo ndikon në ndërtimin e identitetit të tyre. Sa kanë hapësirë të rinjet për mu angazhu si qytetar aktiv. Dhe kjo pastaj krijon hapësirë për me mujt me intervenu grupe të ndryshme që janë ndërtojnë këtë identitetin, po e shtin edhe më u bë të rëndësishëm, të vlefshëm, dhe po ashtu kjo ndikon në rritjen e këtij formësimit të identitetit. Dhe në gjendjen në Kosovë, besoj këto e ndojnë në gjithë rajonin, polarizimi politik, gjuha që është shumë ekstremiste dhe po ashtu e dhunshme, i bën të rinjet me u rekrutu shumë ma lehtë prej grupeve të ndryshme. Në kjo pjesa deshta me ndërhy edhe te pjesa ekonomike, po është të rëndësishme në përgjithësi kur flasim për ekstremizëm, po sidomos të rinjet të ndryshme dallon për shkak të identitetit, që ndoshta mundem me ndo me grup mosha, dhe rëndësishme tjetra është sidomos me mësimdhënësit ku kemi diskutu, është tek ndërtimi i maskulinitetit, sidomos na peshohen që ka ndërlidhje të ekstremizmit që është antigjinor dhe sidomos ato peshohen në krejt rajonin, e kjo po ka një ndikim të madh sidomos tek të rinjet burra ose djem, që kanë këtë identitetin maskulin dhe i sulmojnë gratë, edhe i sulmojnë grupet queer. Kjo është një diçka e re ndoshta që jemi të po në mënyrë më të shprehur në rajonin tonë. Nëse mundem me shtu diçka derisa të mbrish tek foltorja, po është ajo Adelin, është ndjenja përkatësisë, nuk dihet, pra janë këgja shumë çështje të cilat luajnë një rol në rekrutim. Edhe këto kanë avancuar edhe tash, por nuk mundemi me thonë që janë hek krejt prej përdorimit prej grupeve të rekrutimit. Për shkak që ende përdoret parja për me rekrutu persona, ende përdoret gjendja psikologjike, gjendja financiare personave, cilët nuk din kam ja majt edhe normalisht ajo targeti ma i letë për një rekrutus. Ndjenja përkatësisë është njëna prej tyre, gjë që edhe unë mendoj që është një prej më të rëndësishme vendosësa. Sepse të saktësisht të targeton e din kush sakt çka të duhet me punu me qatë person i cili ka mungesë në ndjenjen së përkatësisë. Këtu pak me ndërlidhe edhe me profesorin, më parë që ta jemi të marë po flasim pak ma shumë për çështjen e ekstremizmit religios fetar, për shkak që jemi përballë ma shumë dhe kemi ma shumë eksperiencë në trajtimin e këtyre rasteve, po pa dash me i minimizu faktet që në Kosovë ka celula dhe ka raste të cilat na mundemi me identifiku se janë kry apo i përkasin grupeve të ekstremit të djathtë, veprimet të cilat janë bo. E kemi rastin, për shembull, e kemi 3-4 raste të cilat janë të identifikuara në veri të vendit, të cilat prekin, po edhe në pjesën tjetër të Kosovës. Po me qënë se kemi, sepse neve na u ka dash një kohë gjatë për me e di qysh me i trajtu grupe cilat kosovartë, cilat janë rikthy prej zonave të konfliktit. Edhe normalisht nuk po thëmë, sepse kemi arrit, jemi avancu në Kosovë, e kena mekanizma këtë gjatë mirë, e kena policinë e Kosovës, cilët kryeni punë këtë gjatë mirë, e kemi departamentin për reintegrim siguri publike në Ministritë Punëve të Brendshme, që vazhdimisht merren me programe, po edhe me trajtimin e rasteve të tilla. Po me qenë se ende jemi tu i trajtu, tu mësu qysh me identifiku edhe qito celula të ekstremizmit të djathtë. Ndonëse se ka janë të identifikume, po qysh me i trajtu prej fillimit deri në fund sikur këtë pjesën tjetër, po që pa dash me përjashtu faktin që po. Vazhdon, do me thonë kemi forma të ndryshme të ekstremizmit, të cilat jemi tu i pa ko pas ko, ndonëse normalisht në të ardhmen presim me u bo shumë atë rrezikshme se sa aktualisht.
Thank you very much. Before we move on for the last part of this discussion with basically a new set of specific questions, I just wanted to add something which probably is also key, at least from an analytical perspective, also building on what Milos was also saying about the role of specific languages on social media platforms and what specific songs, for example, what specific recurring items that we see used or misused also on social media by specific individuals. And I believe that what is probably still missing, at least from a scientific and analytical perspective, is also definitely a little bit of more in-depth discourse analysis. So trying to understand, not in specific case studies, I'm sure that out there, especially also in the region, there are a lot of studies that focus on specific songs in specific languages, but trying to understand patterns, because if anything, the radicalization as such, be it political or religious, is definitely not only a Balkan phenomenon. We see that everywhere. We see exactly the same patterns pretty much across the world. The same can be said, for example, for Latin America, with the use of specific songs associated with specific criminal subcultures, the use of specific items, luxurious items, be it cars or specific watches, specific brands of bottles of wines, and so on and so forth. So it's important probably to step a little bit back and have probably a bigger global pictures and trying to understand what patterns are out there, and then analyze them also with the help of social media influencers, which, by the way, I believe are probably sometimes misunderstood in their role, or the role actually at least that they could play in this whole thing. We tend to associate social media influencers are people that, yes, they have a grip on specific individuals on social media, but at the same time we don't really see much of the potential that they could have also in disrupting certain narratives and certain sub-narratives as well. And then still on this, it would be also interesting to also bridging in a way when it comes to understanding whether it's social media the real battleground. Well, sometimes in our research we come across many instances in which radicalization happened, started, developed, and then in a way flourished, but then stayed still on the social media sort of like platform. It never translated into any physical violence, or at least there was no episodes ever recorded. Of course, the real problem, at least for policymakers, is then trying to understand when and where and to what extent radicalization online then of course has an impact on real life, whether there's this bridge between online and offline is filled by specific actions. But again here, does this mean that if radicalization happens only online, then it can be disregarded and probably also underestimated by policymakers? Well, not really, because eventually, of course, the risk is always there. And with this, we can go actually to the next section, unless anybody has a final comment. Vanya? Yes, please, of course. A microphone here, please.
Is it on? Yes. So this is kind of a question about the first one. Is it only about economic hardship? So obviously we cannot pinpoint in only one cause. But what I actually wanted to ask you to maybe explain to us, because we are talking about the nexus between organized crime and violent extremism. And from what I heard now in the commentary, we talk a lot about the sense of belonging, about ideologies, but really the word belonging kind of stood out. But then if you go back to the question about the economic hardships, right? Is there a difference in the role it plays in the recruitment to organized crime groups versus violent extremist groups? So maybe that would be kind of interesting to say and to explain. I know when we talk about organized crime, we always talk about how it's an enterprise, right? It's about big money. So the role of economic situation into the recruitment of organized crime groups versus
That's a very important question, because as you said, usually what happens is that you have on the one side, and I'm talking about international analytical consensus, if you pass the term, that when it comes to organized crime, it's always about easy money, it's always about transaction. But this, I believe, it's because there is a very, in a way, misleading understanding also of what organized crime is. And also the fact that it's a very monolithic understanding of organized crime. Organized crime is a very diverse set of actors, it's a very diverse set of interactions, be it financial, economic, whatever, or human interactions as well. If we understand, so my answer to your question is, it really depends on what kind of organized crime groups or criminal networks we are referring to. And this can only be, so the answer to specific question can only be found in a very context-based analysis. In certain parts of the world, you have organized crime groups which are really business-oriented. They are basically criminal enterprises with specialized in the trafficking of whatever illicit good that is used as a normal commodity. In that case, well, joining a criminal networks, an illicit trade group, if you will, it's just an economic thing. And in most cases, I would say also research confirmed that. It's just the fact that it's easy money, it's quick, depending of course on the legal framework and the jurisdiction, the risks associated with the criminal activity are relatively low, so why not for people that of course are in economic hardship and so on. However, and this in a way also reinforces the idea that recruitment into organized crime is money and recruitment into violent extremism is belonging, emotions, basically what's already been discussed until now. Well, but this is not really the case in many regions from across the world, including the Western Balkans. We have here in the regions a series of, or less, quite a high number of regions and specific areas where criminal networks do not configure as the type of criminal networks that I've just described before, but more as a mafia-style criminal organizations, which have not only, of course, strong economic power, but they also have a very strong social control of the life. So meaning that this is not criminals, this is not just traffickers, it's also people that have and hold certain political and societal power and so on. And they do have also sort of like, they exercise a specific influence in the decision-making process by, of course, youngsters included. So in many areas, including where I'm from, which is Sicily in the south of Italy, most of the youngsters that decided to join a specific mafia group, which in my case is Cosa Nostra, but this applies also to other groups from across Italy, is not about money. It's because they do already belong to that specific subculture. And they embrace also the system of values that a specific criminal groups has in a way imposed on that specific subculture. And by subculture here, I'm referring to a non-spatial configuration. It goes across neighborhoods. It's not about economic hardship, because now, especially now, you see that many young members of organized crime groups from across Europe, they're not from poor neighborhoods. There are people with high university degrees as well. So they had also all the possibilities in life and all the chances to make the right decisions, but they decided not to, not for money. Yeah, of course for money, definitely, but these are not people that are poor. It's definitely because they have followed a specific, I don't want to say leader, but a specific figure that has in a way, that has found a way to prevail in that sense. And this goes back also to what Dimitar was mentioning before, it's also about the understanding of how corrupt your society is, that meaning that there is no right and wrong. Because even if you do the wrong thing, very likely you're not going to be, you're going to be investigated, but you never know when and if investigation is going to produce any result. And even if you go to jail, then we're going to discuss that later, but what is jail in that sense? And I don't know actually how much time do we have. We still have a good 10 minutes, I believe, yeah? So this is actually the second part. In a way, we have already sort of touched this. And actually, this long monologue that I just had was basically probably addressing the first question. So what do recruiters really offer? both sides. We have discussed at the very beginning, I mean, the first part we have discussed the lifestyle, the belief system, which is particularly important, especially when it comes to the emotional or, yeah, the subconscious, especially of specific people. Protection, well, protection is also an interesting word, also depending on how is understood in a way. Is it protection from what? This is probably the most important question that we should ask ourselves. And then actually I would like to ask this question from to you. Then the second point is how much of recruitment is direct persuasion and how much instead happens through passive exposure. So this is also a question which is particularly very important, because when we understand recruitment, we sort of, in our minds now, we believe that there is some sort of like a selection process, like job interviews. I want to be part of this group, or you've been selected to be part of this group. So there is some sort of like active, direct interactions between the recruited and the recruiter and the recruited. But sometimes youngsters especially make choices just because it's the only thing that I can do. They don't even think much about it before then actually realizing that it's probably too late. And then the third point is, are recruiters adapting faster than the institutions trying to stop them, which I believe this is probably a dilemma rather than a question. May I ask you for, actually, Milos, because you talked about, and I would talk about this forever, of course, unless there are any other comments here, about the role of social media and the sort of like lifestyle which is promoted on these specific platforms, and what it means in terms of also sense of belonging. And according to your understanding, basically the showcasing of this specific lifestyle, how much of an impact this can have on recruitment, on the actual joining of a specific violent extremist group or even an organized crime group? Can you give a microphone? Thanks.
You already mentioned that luxury lifestyle, but that is one part of those, how to say, influencers from that world. So I know for some examples, especially for example from Turkey, there was big influencer who promote lifestyle with luxury cars, expensive hotels and different places. Also one young group from, for example, from Macedonia, maybe there are not extremists, but that is some kind of organized crime group. You can see that very youth, you can see them in Dubai, how they draw very expensive cars and visit those expensive hotels. But that is one part in which you can see that luxury style. But for me, maybe more dangerous part is that which is going in some kind of beliefs and which have beliefs or religion part, because especially on Balkan, on TikTok and Instagram, you can find a mix of some strong belief messages mixed with modern music. So that part is really interesting to, how to say, to follow, because on that way you can feel different feelings which they can provoke during the following those stories, for example. But that is some kind. I cannot make some conclusion around that, because I think that it depends from cases to cases, and it's important to make difference between some I will call that incidents or some personal takes by some persons. For example, we have that situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Bosanska Krupa. That is the act of individual, but it was influenced by, I think, by also mixed by social networks and that personal approach. So it's depends from case to case.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody? Yes, please, of course, go ahead. And if you can introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kustin Joshai. I come from Community Building Mitrovica. We work on prevention of violent extremism and rehabilitation and reintegration of returnees who were repatriated in Kosovo from conflict zones in Iraq and Syria since 2018. And what we are focusing more or putting our efforts more are now currently in different forms of violent extremism, mainly on ethno-national and right-wing extremism. And when we talked about factors of radicalization, pull and push factors, we have to bear in mind that different factors of radicalization affect different people based on also where they are living as well. Let's say if we have high social and political instability, as well as lack of, let's say, economical opportunities in Kosovo, this is a factor that affects the whole Kosovo region. However, if we talk about lack of trust in public institutions, you can see that this factor of radicalization, if we can say, is highly more prominent in Mitrovica or north of Mitrovica because of due to different ethnic backgrounds living there, and also working with returnees and seeing. I'm trying to answer some of the questions here, seeing how they were radicalized and how people, what the recruiters have offered them. This is highly depends on the vulnerability that these people had. For example, if my vulnerability would be an economical one, they would portray, they would send me video messages and all of those on social media that would kind of show a luxurious life, let's say lifestyle in, let's say, joining ISIS and joining other organizations. If my vulnerability would be the sense of belonging, ownership, friendship, identity, and all of those, then they would send me all of these people who are freely, let's say, preaching and praying what you believe, and you can voice your opinion freely, and then you can have many friends. There were also youngsters who just went there for adventure. So we can't say now, just because one or two people went and joined this organization just for the sense of identity or belonging or just for adventure, that the other factors of radicalization are, let's say, solved or less important. And I have also had the chance last month to visit Mauritania. I was invited by GSURF in one of regional sessions, forums, and I've seen that some ex-terrorist offenders, who were 8 of them, who were planning suicide bombing in Mauritania, one of them who later on kind of developed his own organization and tried to de-radicalize youngsters, which happened in the prison. He said clearly that lack of ignorance and lack of economical opportunities, as well as high level of poverty, are biggest factors of radicalization. And I can link to that. Like, we don't have such level of poverty in Kosovo, if I can say, but the economical factor still stands. However, ignorance and lack of education are highly important. And through our programming in CBM, we are trying to address that, and we are trying to, through critical thinking activities, as well as trainings and educational programs, to kind of unite Kosovo Serbs, if we are working on ethno-nationalism, to unite kind of Kosovo Serbs and Kosovo Albanians together and change that kind of perception towards one another, and making behavioral and cognitive changes. So I just wanted to kind of sum it up in a few words, but one message that I have also for the donor community is that specific needs in communities require local level intervention. And this local level intervention, if donors want to contribute and help organizations at the local level, they need to go and address these together with them. Whenever they kind of make funding strategies for, let's say, Western Balkans, I advise to all organizations and all the donors to go to the local level to ask the local community what are the needs, what are the factors, because as I mentioned in the beginning, different factors affect different regions in a less or higher way. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Really appreciate it. Is there any other comment from the room? Yes, Pascal. Sorry, one. Yes, please.
Përshëndetje të gjithëve. Jam Pascal Selenica dhe përfaqësoj organizatën Vlora Youth Center. Është e vërtet që në rrjetet sociale shumë persona që merren me aktivitete palishëm tregojnë një jetë luksoze dhe kjo lloj fasade është tërheqëse nga një pjesë e audiencës që mund të ketë edhe probleme ekonomike. Por në takimet që kemi bërë për këtë projekt, që kemi qenë edhe në zonat që janë shumë vulnerabël ndaj aktiviteteve të palishëm ku ka shumë aktivitet të palishëm në fshatrat e Vlorës e të tjera, kemi vënë re që rinia atje e do këtë pasurimin e shpejt. Mirë po ka një mungesë informacioni dhe ata nuk e din problemet që sjell kjo lloj jete. Ata nuk i njohin, ata shikojnë vetëm atë fasadën që tregohet në rrjetet sociale që bën një jetë shumë të pasur dhe shumë luksoze, por ata nuk e din problemet që sjellin kjo jetë. Dhe mendoj që një zgjidhje mund të jetë që ashtu siç përdoren rrjetet sociale për të treguar këtë jetën luksoze që bëjnë njerëzit që kanë aktivitet të palishëm, mund të përdoret edhe nga ne, njerëzit e thjesht, që të tregojnë problemet që sjell kjo jetë duke bërë këtë aktivitet të palishëm. Në mënyrë që shumë nga këta të ndërgjegjësohen edhe të shikojnë edhe anën negative që është shumë herë më e madhe se sa ana pozitive. Faleminderit.
E diskutun ku paskoj faktin që po, rekrutuesit japin gjithçka nëse është ideja me rekrutu një person të caktuar, një target të tyre. Pra ofrojnë pare, ofrojnë ndihmë financiare, ofrojnë pozita, po është edhe një lloj tjetër arsye që mund ka rastis me dëgju prej njerëzve të cilët i kam intervistuar, si jam taku me ta, është një ndjenje e borxhit, po besoj disa prej juve e keni dëgju këto që shpesh herë e rekrutuesit shtin me uni borxhli ndaj tij. Të ndihmon me diçka që ti me unin në faj, me unin në borxh, me ja kthy çat mirë. Edhe zakonisht kjo është bile kohëve të fundit është ish pasboj zakonshme ky fakt që me ta kthy ndihmën me ndihmë. Edhe kjo mandej kjo ndjenja e fajit që ti ekip se ty të ka ndihmu dikush, të ka shti me u marrë me të ma shumë. Edhe mandeja i ka provu, ja ka njësë edhe të ka studiu, ja ka njësë rekrutuese e ka pa çka mundet, ku mundet me mbri me ty, edhe në fund ty të provon me një çështje të caktuar, qoftë ta jep një detyrë të cilën ti duhesh me provu që je person që i bindesh, qoftë të grupeve ekstremiste, po qoftë edhe grupeve të krimit. Po, në anën tjetër, për shembull, e përmendë edhe rezervë mbrojtjen. Në të dy grupet, edhe në grupet ekstreme, po edhe në grupet e krimit të organizuar, ty të ofrohet një lloj mbrojtje prej shtetit edhe prej rrethit. Pse prej shtetit? Grupet kriminale kryesisht kërkojnë mbrojtje për më mbrojt prej shtetit, sepse ata po bëjnë veprimtari kriminale dhe kryesisht u ofrohet një far pozite caktume, qoftë në grup, qoftë me kry një shkëmbim, me pas një rol kogja të rëndësishëm, po në fundi për me kry punën, për me e rrit grupin kriminal, ti ki me ofru mbrojtje që shteti mos me të kapti, mos mu marrë me ty. Njëjtë është edhe të kjo pjesa e grupeve ekstreme, për shembull. Zakonisht grupet ekstreme nuk është e besojnë shumë në rolin e institucioneve, andaj edhe çka kërkojnë një farë lloj mbrojtje prej njerëzve të tjerë, që kryesisht e kanë një ideologji të njëjtë, që kryesisht janë të dash me marrë një pozitë të caktuar. Për me rujti çat pozitë, ti kërkon prej njerëzve që të rrethojnë me pa që të loj mbrojtën që ti mos mu prejt, mu ko një paprakshë me ki, atë pozitë cilin e ki edhe me mbaj që ato. E zagonisht për me i kry krejt këto procese, normalisht duhet me pënu shumë edhe me ofru shumë. Edhe ofrohen në fakt për anës rekrutuza. Sa më gjaj.
Thank you very much. We really have just 2 minutes to wrap this up, unless there is any other comment. Jovana, please.
Hello to everyone. I'm Jovana Škorić. I come from Serbia. I'm here representing Restart, a non-governmental organization in Novi Sad. I would like to comment your first question. Yeah. Actually, I interview recruiters as well as the members of hooligan groups, and I think they actually offer a lot. Some of things you mentioned, a lifestyle, belief system, protection, solidarity as well, on the wrong way, of course, but solidarity, they put things in order, and that is all that the children need in the, for example, some developed period, such as, I don't know, adolescence or something like that. But I think it's my experience, my field experience told me that a lot of children want, after our programs, they want to exit the hooligans group, but they don't know how. Maybe it might be interesting to explain what is to come in. It's very easy, yeah, but to exit some hooligans group or criminal groups, it's very hard, yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely, this would open into a totally probably new debate, which I believe is as important as the one we just had. Because of course, as you mentioned, once you enter a specific group, and by group I mean also a system of belief in a way, is not guaranteed that you're going to stick to that, because the same way that you change your system of belief when you enter that specific group, then it might be also that you might change it and want out. And of course, this also opens to a new systems of emotions and feelings, which are in fact feeling constrained and feeling, of course, of not belonging anymore, which opens also to another series of also psychological issues as well, other than, of course, related to security and safety. So I would be very happy to also to discuss this during actually the coffee break that we're gonna have now, right? Do you wanna announce it? So I thank you very much really for this conversation. It was extremely helpful, first of all. And yeah, look forward to the rest of the day. And thank you, of course, also Adelina for hosting.
Yeah. Thank you both as well as participants. Now it's the time for a well-deserved coffee break, which is served on my left side. But before we do that, I kindly invite you also to visit the exhibition, especially those that were not present here last night. We have also a graffiti next to the main entrance which was prepared by a local artist specifically for this event. And there are 2 sections in which you could also write a message. So after you had the coffee, please stop by the graffiti and you can write a message as well. So enjoy the coffee and we will return at 12 sharp. Thank you.